The U-Haul groaned its last as David wrestled the ramp into place. Maya hopped out of the cab, stretching. Finally, she breathed, taking in their new home. It wasn't much, a modest, 2-story house with peeling blue paint, but it was theirs. A huge maple tree dominated the front yard, its leaves just beginning to hint at autumn colors. "Home sweet home," David said, clapping her on the shoulder. "Let's get this unpacked before dark." The house smelled faintly of dust and old potpourri. While David began unloading furniture, Maya explored. Her room was small, but the window overlooked the sprawling backyard. Perfect for practicing her routines. Tryouts were tomorrow. Just the thought made her stomach churn. She'd been a cheerleader back in San Diego, but this was different. A new school, new faces, new rivals. She pulled out her cheer bag, the familiar scent of pom-poms, and hairspray a small comfort. The next afternoon, the school gymnasium buzzed with nervous energy. Girls in bright spandex and perfectly styled hair stretched and gossiped. Maya, in her old cheerleading uniform, felt like an outsider. She found a spot near the back, her heart pounding. A tall blonde with a severe ponytail stepped forward. "All right, ladies, let's get started. I'm Miss Thompson, and I'll be judging today. Remember, we're looking for spirit, skill, and teamwork." The tryout began with a series of jumps, toe touches, herkies, pikes Maya managed to keep up, her years of practice kicking in. Then came the tumbling. This was where she struggled. She attempted a cartwheel, wobbled, and nearly fell. A few girls snickered. Next, they were taught a short cheer routine. The steps were fast, the movements sharp. Maya fumbled, her arms and legs moving in a chaotic jumble. She could feel her face burning with embarrassment. Across the gym, Brittany Davis watched with a smirk. "Look at that," she whispered to Sarah and Jessica, her 2 loyal followers. "She moves like a newborn giraffe." Sarah giggled nervously. "Maybe she's just nervous." "Nervous doesn't excuse that atrocious form," Brittany retorted, adjusting her own perfect ponytail. "She's clearly never cheered a day in her life. Imagine having her on the squad." She shuddered dramatically. Maya, oblivious to their comments, tried to regain her focus. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and pictured the routine in her head. When the music started again, she tried to channel her inner cheerleader, the one who loved the thrill of the crowd, the energy of the game. She still stumbled, still missed a few steps, but this time, she smiled. She threw her heart into it, her voice ringing out with genuine enthusiasm. Even if she didn't make the squad, she wouldn't let them see her defeated. Brittany raised an eyebrow, a flicker of something that wasn't quite amusement in her eyes. "Well, at least she's loud," she conceded. "Though, that enthusiasm won't help her land a back handspring." Jessica elbowed Sarah, and they both stifled a laugh. As Maya finished the routine, breathless but beaming, David walked into the gym. He stood near the bleachers, his presence a silent reassurance. He caught her eye and gave her a small, encouraging nod. He didn't need to say anything. She knew he was proud of her, regardless of the outcome. The tryouts continued, but Maya's confidence had been shaken. She knew she hadn't been perfect, but she'd given it her all. Now, all she could do was wait. The squad and the snide. The typed list, taped haphazardly to the gymnasium door, seemed to shimmer. Maya held her breath, pushing through the throng of anxious girls craning their necks. Davis B. Miller S. Johnson M. A dizzying wave of relief washed over her, so potent it almost buckled her knees. She made it. She actually made the squad. The first practice, buzzed with nervous energy. Coach Thompson, a whirlwind of a woman with a voice that could cut through steel, ran them through basic stretches. Maya, still riding the high of making the team, stumbled slightly during a toe touch, nearly clipping Sarah Miller, who stood next to her. "Watch it, newbie," Brittany Davis drawled from the front row, her voice laced with honeyed venom. "Wouldn't want you breaking a nail before tryouts for the remedial squad." Maya's cheeks burned. She mumbled an apology, focusing intently on her stretches, trying to block out Brittany's laughter, which was quickly joined by a chorus of giggles from her clique. As they moved on to more complicated routines, the accidents started. Someone accidentally kicked her in the shins during a jump. Her water bottle mysteriously vanished during a break, only to reappear moments later filled with ice water. Sarah, glancing at Maya with wide, apologetic eyes, seemed to be trying to avoid eye contact. Having trouble keeping up, Johnson? Brittany's voice sliced through the air. Maya ignored her, concentrating on the count, trying to memorize the sequence. Left arm up, right leg back, twist. She faltered, momentarily thrown by Brittany's taunt, and missed a step. Graceful as a newborn giraffe, Brittany snickered, and this time, several other girls joined in. Maya felt a familiar tightness in her chest, the unwelcome guest of self-doubt creeping in. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the bleachers and become invisible. Coach Thompson clapped her hands, silencing the giggles. "All right, ladies, let's focus. We have a competition to win." The practice continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. The initial excitement had been replaced by a palpable tension. Maya felt isolated, adrift in a sea of practiced smiles and pointed barbs. She tried to shut it out, to lose herself in the rhythm of the routine, but Brittany's voice, like a persistent mosquito, buzzed constantly in her ear, a relentless reminder that she didn't belong. "Clumsy Maya," she'd whisper, or "Butterfingers." By the end of practice, Maya's uniform clung to her, damp with sweat and humiliation. She gathered her things, avoiding eye contact with Brittany and her group, who were huddled together, whispering and casting knowing glances in her direction. As she hurried out of the gym, Sarah caught up to her. "Maya," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry. About everything." Maya stopped, but didn't turn around. "It's okay," she mumbled, knowing it wasn't. "Brittany, she can be difficult," Sarah continued, her voice laced with fear. "But just try to ignore her." Maya nodded, a lump forming in her throat. Ignoring her felt impossible. But she would try. She had to. This was her dream, and she wouldn't let Brittany Davis steal it from her. Not without a fight. Finding a friend. The sting of Brittany's words lingered long after practice. Maya practiced her jumps in the empty gym, the squeak of her sneakers echoing in the cavernous space. Each time she pictured Brittany's sneer, she faltered. "Think graceful, Maya," she muttered, channeling her father's calm voice. She imagined herself floating, a feather on the wind, and launched into a toe touch. This time she landed it. A small victory, but it felt monumental. "Wow, that was amazing," a voice said behind her. Maya turned to see Sarah, her usual nervous energy replaced with genuine awe. "I've been trying to get that right for weeks." Maya flushed and used to compliments. "Thanks. I just try to focus on the feeling." Sarah edged closer, her gaze flicking towards the gym door. "Listen, about Brittany, she's just competitive." Maya picked at a loose thread on her cheer skirt. "She doesn't seem to like me very much." "It's not you," Sarah insisted, her voice low. "She's like that with everyone new. Especially if they're good." Sarah's eyes widened slightly, as if she had said too much. "Anyway, I saw you in English class yesterday. You were reading The Hate You Give. I love Angie Thomas." Maya's face lit up. "Me too. I've read everything she's written." They spent the next few minutes discussing their favorite authors, the shared passion easing the tension between them. Sarah even showed Maya a modification to her arm movements during a cheer, a subtle tweak that instantly improved Maya's form. Later, as they walked towards the parking lot, Brittany intercepted them, her posse flanking her like loyal soldiers. Well, look who's playing nice. Trying to steal my thunder, Sarah." Sarah's shoulders tensed. "Just walking with Maya." Brittany's eyes narrowed, focusing on Maya. "Don't get too comfortable. This is our squad. You're just visiting." She bumped Maya's shoulder as she passed, a deliberate jab. Sarah winced, her gaze darting between Maya and Brittany. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but then closed it, hurrying after Brittany. Maya watched them go, the warmth of her earlier conversation with Sarah replaced by a familiar chill. Back in the gym, alone again, Maya replayed the toe touch in her mind. But this time, instead of picturing Brittany's face, she saw Sarah's surprised expression and the flash of guilt in her eyes. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't entirely alone. She focused, pushed aside the doubt, and launched herself into the air. Higher, faster, stronger. This time, she added a herky. Perfect landing. A surge of confidence coursed through her. She was a cheerleader. She belonged here. Missing shoes, crushed spirits. The air in the girls' locker room crackled with pre-rally energy. Hairspray hung thick, mingling with the scent of cheap perfume and nervous sweat. Maya smoothed down her brand-new cheer skirt, its crisp pleats a stark contrast to the clammy dampness of her palms. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the blaring pop music. Today was a big day, her first real pep rally performance. Brittany Davis, perched on a bench, meticulously applied another layer of glittery eyeshadow. Her voice dripped with saccharine sweetness as she spoke. Excited, Maya? Big day for you. Maya managed a weak smile. Yeah, a little nervous, but excited. Sarah Miller, fiddling with her pom-poms, caught Maya's eye and offered a small, sympathetic smile. Maya appreciated it, a brief flicker of kindness in Brittany's manufactured sunshine. Well, don't trip, Brittany added, her eyes flicking over Maya's legs. We wouldn't want you ruining the routine. Maya's anxiety spiked. She knew Brittany was trying to rattle her. She focused on her breathing, reminding herself of the steps, the counts, the practiced smiles. Shoes! Shoes! Where are my shoes? Panic clawed at Maya's throat. She rummaged through her gym bag, tossing aside her water bottle, extra socks, and a crumpled energy bar wrapper. Empty. Her new cheer shoes, the ones her dad had surprised her with, were gone. A cold dread washed over her. The music from the gym, a distorted throb through the locker room walls, seemed to mock her growing panic. Looking for something, Maya? Brittany's voice, now laced with undisguised amusement, cut through the noise. Maya whirled around, her voice trembling. My shoes. Have you seen them? Brittany feigned surprise, widening her perfectly mascaraed eyes. Shoes? Gosh, no. Maybe you just misplaced them. You are a little scatterbrained, aren't you? A ripple of laughter spread through the other girls clustered around Brittany. Sarah looked away, her face flushed. The pep rally was starting. The roar of the crowd, punctuated by the school band's off-key rendition of the fight song, grew louder. Coach Thompson was already calling for them. Tears stung Maya's eyes. She frantically searched under the benches, behind the lockers, even inside the overflowing laundry hamper. Nothing. She could hear the opening chords of their routine, the sharp whistle signaling the start. She stumbled out of the locker room, her bare feet slapping against the cold tile floor. The gymnasium doors loomed ahead, a gateway to a nightmare. The entire school was there, a sea of faces waiting to be entertained. She saw Brittany, Sarah, and the rest of the squad take their positions, their crisp uniforms and gleaming shoes a picture of perfect coordination. The music swelled, and they launched into the routine. Maya stood frozen in the doorway, barefoot and humiliated. All eyes turned to her. Whispers rippled through the crowd. She saw pity, amusement, and something akin to disgust on the faces staring back at her. The carefully constructed facade of confidence she'd been trying to build shattered into a million pieces. This wasn't just a missing pair of shoes. It was a missing piece of herself. The music faded, the routine ended, and the silence was deafening. A father's strength. The front door slammed, a jarring sound that shattered the afternoon quiet, likely louder than Maya intended. In the kitchen, David, prepping vegetables for supper, paused, a crease forming between his brows. Usually, Maya drifted in on a cloud of humming and pop tunes, her cheer bag a gentle counterpoint against her back. Today, the thump was a definite thud. He dried his hands and found her in the living room. She was a heap on the sofa, her cheerleading uniform rumpled, its vibrant hues somehow muted. A tremor ran through her. Hey, Peanut, David murmured, settling beside her. He resisted the urge to engulf her in a hug, sensing a need for space. Tough one. Maya sniffled, eyes fixed on some distant point. It was fine. David sized her up. He knew that inflection. Fine like a tax audit, or fine like finding a 20 in your winter coat? A watery smile flickered across her face. Tax audit. He waited, understanding that pressure was futile with Maya. Patience had become his watchword, a hard-won virtue from years of coaxing out whispers and navigating shy glances. He picked up a stray braid, turning the silky strands over in his fingers. Anything you want to unload? Silence stretched, punctuated only by the grandfather clock's measured tick in the hall. Then, Maya's breath hitched. They don't like me. David's gut tightened. Who, sweetie? Tears breached her defenses, tracing paths down her cheeks. She swiped at them with the back of her hand. The cheerleaders. Some of them, anyway. He drew her close, allowing her to bury her face against his shoulder. Tell me all about it, he encouraged softly. The words poured out, a dam bursting with pent-up frustration and wounded feelings. She recounted the barbed comments during practice, the eye rolls that punctuated her every utterance, the calculated bumps and shoves that occurred just outside the coach's field of vision. She confessed to the hushed, cutting remarks in the locker room, the constant sensation of being scrutinized and judged. Her voice faltered as she described the disappearance of her pom-poms before practice, the echoing laughter that erupted when she tripped during a routine. They call me clumsy, she choked out, pulling back to meet his gaze, her eyes raw. They say I don't belong. David listened, his jaw rigid, his hands balled into fists hidden from view. Her pain resonated within him, a palpable ache. He recalled teaching her to bike, the countless scraped knees and tearful outbursts. He thought of the school play where she'd blanked on her lines, the way her small form had vibrated with dread. Always, he'd been there to lift her up, to mend her spirit, to remind her of her resilience. But this felt different. This was a deliberate act of unkindness, a calculated assault on her spirit. When the torrent finally subsided, leaving her spent and raw, David embraced her tightly. Thank you for trusting me, Maya, he said, his voice a steady anchor. You are incredibly strong. He framed her face with his hands, tenderly wiping away the lingering tears with his thumbs. And you know what? They're dead wrong. You absolutely belong on that squad. You're talented, you're dedicated, and you possess more grace in your small finger than they have in their entire beings. Secrets of a Seal. Maya fiddled with the worn strap of her backpack, the fluorescent lights of the kitchen buzzing overhead. She'd been practicing her routine in the garage, the rhythmic thud of her jumps echoing in the otherwise quiet house. She needed to land that back handspring, needed to feel confident, needed to not be a complete disaster at tryouts tomorrow. David leaned against the counter, arms crossed, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. Nervous! Terrified, Maya admitted, the word barely a whisper. She slumped into a chair, the metal legs scraping against the linoleum. Everyone else seems so good and confident. I'm going to trip and fall on my face in front of the entire school. He pushed himself off the counter and sat beside her, his presence a solid anchor against her swirling anxieties. He smelled faintly of wood smoke and the subtle spice of his aftershave. You're good, Maya. You just need to believe it. She snorted, a humorless sound. Easy for you to say. You're good at everything. He hesitated, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Not everything comes easy, Maya. There are things I had to work for, things I trained for. He paused, then said quietly, I was a Navy SEAL. The words hung in the air, heavy and unexpected. Maya stared at him, mouth slightly open. Her dad, a Navy SEAL. It didn't fit with the gentle, patient man who helped her with her homework and made pancakes on Saturday mornings. I spent years learning how to push myself further than I thought possible, learning how to handle stress, how to make decisions under pressure. That's what I did before I met your mom. He ran a hand through his close-cropped hair, a rare sign of unease. It's not something I talk about much. But why? Maya asked, still trying to reconcile the image of a hardened warrior with her dad. Because, he said, meeting her gaze with unwavering sincerity, that life was about conflict. My life now is about building things, about protecting you and your brother, about creating peace. I believe in solving problems without violence, if possible. But, his voice hardened slightly, I will always protect my family. He stood up, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the kitchen. So about those tryouts. He clapped his hands together. I was watching you practice. You've got the moves, you've got the strength. What you need is a little more confidence. And maybe a spotter. He winked. I might not know much about cheerleading, but I know a thing or two about pushing limits and teamwork. Maybe I could talk to the coach, see if they need an assistant. He chuckled. I'm pretty good at yelling encouragement. A slow smile spread across Maya's face. Her dad, an assistant cheerleading coach. The idea was so absurd, so wonderfully supportive, it made her chest ache with affection. Maybe, just maybe, she could do this. That would be amazing, Dad. Thank you. The knot in her stomach loosened a fraction. With her dad in her corner, even the meanest cheerleaders and the most terrifying back handspring seemed a little less daunting. He ruffled her hair. All right then. Let's work on that back handspring. And tomorrow, we'll show them what you're made of. Training and teamwork. The gym smelled of sweat and floor wax. David clapped his hands, the sound echoing off the bleachers. All right, ladies. Let's start with something different today. We're going to focus on building a pyramid, but with a twist. He gestured to a box filled with colorful scarves. Each level has to pass a scarf to the next, without using their hands. Think creatively. Brittany rolled her eyes, exchanging a smirk with Sarah. Seriously? This is cheerleading, not kindergarten. David's gaze met Brittany's, his expression unreadable. Teamwork is the foundation of any successful routine, Brittany. This exercise builds trust and communication. Maya, still feeling the sting of her missing shoes, felt a flicker of hope. The scars were soft and vibrant, a welcome distraction. As the girls began to strategize, a hesitant idea formed in her mind. Maybe we can use our shoulders, she suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. Surprisingly, the suggestion was met with nods. They started slowly, the first level balancing precariously, the second reaching with their shoulders to catch the falling scarf. Laughter rippled through the group as scarves tumbled and bodies bumped. Even Sarah was smiling, her initial skepticism fading. Brittany, however, remained stiff, her movements jerky and impatient. This is ridiculous, she muttered, dropping a scarf deliberately. David stopped the exercise. Okay, reset. Brittany, maybe you can offer some constructive feedback instead of negativity. The practice continued. Slowly but surely, the pyramid began to take shape. Maya found herself in the middle level, connecting the base with the top. She focused, her earlier awkwardness replaced with a newfound confidence. She could feel the weight of the girls above her, but also their trust. This was more than just a routine, it was a shared effort. After the scarf exercise, David introduced a new stunt, one that required a spotter to catch the flyer if she fell. He paired Maya with Brittany. Brittany's face contorted in barely veiled disgust. I'm not spotting her, she declared. She'll probably fall on me. David's voice was quiet but firm. Everyone spots everyone, Brittany. It's about protecting your teammates. He paused, his eyes sweeping across the group. We look out for each other. Period. The message hung in the air. Sarah, looking uncomfortable, met Maya's gaze and offered a small, apologetic smile. As they practiced, Brittany's spotting was half-hearted, almost negligent. Maya, despite her fear, trusted David's words. She focused on the stunt, ignoring Brittany's lack of support. She landed perfectly, a rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins. As practice ended, David gathered the team. I'm proud of the progress I've seen today. Remember, cheerleading is more than just stunts and routines. It's about supporting each other, inside and outside of the gym. Brittany, still seething, grabbed her bag and stormed out, her friends trailing behind her. Maya watched them go, a knot of unease twisting in her stomach. The seeds of teamwork had been planted, but the weeds of animosity were still stubbornly clinging to the surface. Sabotaged uniform, final straw. The air in the gymnasium crackled with pre-competition energy. Pom-poms shimmered under the harsh fluorescent lights, and the rhythmic thump of bass from the sound system vibrated through Maya's sneakers. She was a bundle of nerves, her stomach doing acrobatic flips. This was it, the regional cheerleading championships. Her first big competition since joining the team. Inside the cramped locker room, the atmosphere was a mix of excitement and anxiety. Brittany, seemingly unfazed, meticulously applied glitter to her eyelids. Sarah chewed nervously on her lip, adjusting the fit of her uniform. Maya reached for her own uniform, hanging neatly in its garment bag, a small beacon of hope amidst the chaos. But hope turned to horror. As she unzipped the bag, a gasp escaped her lips. Her pristine white uniform, the one she'd worked so hard to earn, was defaced. Crude drawings marred the fabric, and the team logo was crossed out with thick, black marker. A single, Mocking word was scrawled across the chest, clumsy. Tears stung Maya's eyes. Her breath hitched in her throat. She felt a wave of nausea wash over her. This wasn't just a prank. It was a deliberate act of cruelty aimed directly at her deepest insecurities. Brittany, feigning surprise, strolled over. "Oh, Maya, honey, what happened?" Her voice dripped with fake concern, but her eyes held a glint of satisfaction. "Looks like someone had a little accident." Maya didn't reply. She couldn't. She felt utterly humiliated, her dream dissolving before her very eyes. She scrambled to find a cleaning wipe in her bag, frantically trying to erase the damage, but the marker was permanent. A shadow fell across her. David stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. He'd come to wish her luck, but the sight of his daughter's devastation stopped him cold. He took in the scene, Maya's ruined uniform, her tear-streaked face, and the barely concealed smirks on Brittany and her friends. He knelt beside Maya, his large hand gently covering hers. "What happened, sweetheart?" His voice was quiet, but there was an unmistakable steel in his tone. Maya, choked with emotion, could only point at the ruined uniform. David rose to his full height, his gaze sweeping over the cheerleaders. The gym suddenly felt smaller, the music less loud. Brittany and Sarah shuffled their feet, their earlier confidence faltering. "Brittany," David said, his voice calm but carrying a quiet authority that commanded attention. "Care to explain this?" Brittany's bravado evaporated. She stammered, I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Johnson." David took a step closer. "Don't insult my intelligence. I've seen enough in my life to recognize malice when it's staring me in the face. You may think this is just a harmless prank, but it's not. It's bullying. It's designed to hurt and humiliate, and it's unacceptable." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Think about what you've done. You've taken away Maya's chance to compete, to shine, to feel like she belongs. How would you feel if someone did this to you?" Sarah, her face pale, finally spoke. "Mr. Johnson, she trailed off, unable to meet his gaze. David's eyes softened slightly, but his resolve remained firm. "I'm not going to demand apologies or threaten punishments. What I want is for you to understand the impact of your actions. Think about it. Really think about it. And next time, choose kindness instead of cruelty." He squeezed Maya's shoulder. "Let's go fix this." Apologies and empowerment. The bus to regionals felt like a drawn-out sentence, each mile a heavy pause. Maya gazed out at the autumnal landscape, the fiery hues mirroring the nervous fluttering in her stomach. Across the aisle, Brittany remained stubbornly silent, avoiding her gaze as if Maya emanated bad luck. A surprising request broke the tension as they disembarked. "Maya, can we talk? Just us." Brittany's voice was uncharacteristically subdued. David Johnson, who had insisted on coming, narrowed his eyes but offered them space. He trusted Maya's judgment, remaining within earshot if needed. Brittany scuffed the pavement with her shoe. "Look, I'm sorry. The shoe thing, everything. It was immature, awful, and I was envious. You're incredibly talented, and I was afraid I'd lose my position." She averted her eyes, fixating on a pebble. Sarah and some of the others, we all got carried away. As if on cue, Sarah and 3 other squad members approached, their faces etched with remorse. "We're sorry too, Maya," Sarah initiated. "It was wrong." The others echoed her sentiment, genuine regret coloring their voices. A wave of astonishment washed over Maya. This wasn't the confrontation she'd braced for. "Thank you," she whispered, the words catching in her throat. "That means a lot." A nascent smile touched her lips, easing some of the residual anxiety. With the air cleared, a fragile spirit of unity began to blossom amongst the squad. They initiated their warm-ups, stretching and running through the routines, the atmosphere charged with nervous anticipation. Maya felt a resurgence of belonging, the weight of recent animosity lifting. Backstage, the atmosphere crackled with electricity. The thumping bass from preceding acts resonated through the floorboards. When their moment arrived, Maya inhaled deeply, centering herself on the rhythm, the choreography, the feel of the springy mat beneath her feet. The opening notes exploded, and they unleashed their routine. This time, no missteps, no hesitation. Each leap soared higher, each rotation was executed with breathtaking control, every movement sharp and precise. She nailed each landing with a satisfying firmness, her smile radiating pure joy. The audience erupted in thunderous applause. As the music faded and they hit their final pose, a surge of elation pulsed through Maya. She had triumphed. They all had. Their performance was flawless. The announcer's voice reverberated, and your regional cheerleading champions, Northwood High. The squad exploded with unrestrained glee, jumping and embracing, the accumulated stress of recent weeks dissolving into pure, unadulterated joy. Maya found herself swept into a group hug, Brittany giving her hand a firm squeeze. David Johnson watched from the sidelines, beaming, his chest brimming with pride. He caught Maya's eye and gave a subtle thumbs up, his silent affirmation clear. He was proud of more than just her cheerleading. He was proud of her strength of character. Later, the team celebrated their victory over pizza and sugary drinks. Maya settled beside her dad, basking in the warm afterglow of their triumph. The gleaming trophy sat on the table, a testament to their hard work. "I couldn't have done it without you, Dad," she murmured, leaning her head on his shoulder. "You possessed that strength all along, Maya," he responded, his voice filled with affection. "You simply needed to recognize it within yourself." And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Maya truly did.